Hi, it's Jack here at System Trader, and in this video I'm going to tell you if it makes sense to put into our portfolio bonds which are issued in a foreign currency, the foreign bonds. Normally we put bonds into our portfolios because we want to stabilize it. So most of us wouldn't be able to have 100% stocks in our portfolio because the volatility of such portfolio would be very, very high. Therefore, depending on our risk tolerance, we put some bonds into it just to stabilize that portfolio. But what if we put into our portfolio bonds which are issued in a foreign currency? And in order to answer that question, I made a few simulations, few experiments here, and now I will share with you the results. I built a very simple portfolio which is consisting only one element, iShares ETF for 7 to 10 year treasury bonds. And when we look into the performance of that portfolio just in American dollar, then there are no surprises. Basically, from the beginning of 2000 till the moment when I record that material in the middle of November 2021, the compounded annual growth rate was 5.3%. So on average per year, we were making 5.3% profit. And the maximum drawdown in that portfolio was slightly above 10%. And the volatility of such portfolio, I mean, the standard deviation of the annual returns was on the level of 6.7%, which is significantly lower than stocks, because if we would have, for example, only stocks in our portfolio, rather than having the standard deviation on the level of 6%, we would have 16 or even more percent. So no surprises here. Definitely, if we are living in, let's say, United States, and we are having the salary in American dollars, and we are also having expenses in American dollars, and we are investing, adding into such portfolio American bonds makes sense. But what if we would buy such bonds, but we are living, let's say, in Europe, and we have euro currency as our main currency, which we spend and also in which we invest? And does it make sense to put American dollar into such portfolio? Well, first of all, the maximum drawdown was 25%. So this is already a big problem, because rather than having only the drawdown on the level of 10%, we have more than double deeper maximum drawdown. The return, the compounded annual growth rate, is, let's say, slightly lower, and I would say it would be acceptable if there would be no such big maximum drawdown, and also the volatility is higher than in American dollar. Therefore, if you are someone who's living in Europe and your main currency is euro, then basically adding such bonds which are issued in American dollar may be questionable, at least if you are going more than 10-20% of such bonds in your portfolio. Because let's say that within the moderate amount, like 10-20% of such bonds in our portfolio could be okay. But if you really want to stabilize your portfolio in your own, in your local currency, then basically putting there the foreign bonds is a bit problematic. If you take, on the other hand, British pound, then there is even a different case, because although we have a higher rate of return and the maximum drawdown is on the same almost level as when we would convert it to euro, but the volatility of such portfolio is almost on the level of stocks. So then if you would be expecting to stabilize your portfolio in British pound and you would add bonds in American dollar, then basically the end result is almost non-existing, because basically you are not stabilizing that portfolio when you convert to your local currency. On the other hand, if you are someone who's living in Turkey, and as we know, in the recent years, Turkish lira was really heavily devaluated. then basically the compounded annual growth rate was huge. Over 16% per annum we could make just by investing into American bonds. But this is just when you convert to the Turkish lira. The maximum drawdown is also huge, 25%, but the volatility is even higher than in the case of British pound, and it's over 18%, which is maybe even more than if you would just purely invest in stocks. So, well, that's another question. If even you are investing into the foreign bonds and your currency is heavily devaluated, is it worth to do it? Well, I would say that rather you should look into investing globally in the stocks, but probably bonds should be in your local currency, unless if you are not putting them more than 10-20%. And the last example I have here is from the other side of the extreme. It's the Swiss franc. And almost all currencies over time are weakening if you compare it to American dollar, but it's the opposite with the Swiss franc. Swiss franc is actually stronger than American dollar, and not only in the recent years, but even if you take the last 100 years, you will see that Swiss franc is stronger and stronger. And there is a different case because basically the compounded annual growth rate is on the level of 2.5%. So if you compare it to American dollar, the portfolio where you don't make any conversions to other different currency, then basically the return is the annual return is twice lower. And on the other hand, you have nothing in return because the maximum drawdown is over 30%, which is really huge. It's like on the stocks. And of course, with the volatility, here the volatility is also higher, not so much higher. It's below 10%, but still, if you have the maximum drawdown on the level of 30%, then it's really the question, do you want to invest into American bonds if you are living, if you are earning and spending in Swiss franc, and if you are living in Switzerland? So probably it's better for you to buy your local bonds rather than buy or invest into the foreign bonds, especially if you would like to have these bonds more than 10-20%, as I said before. So in general, my verdict, if someone would ask me, shall we invest in foreign bonds, would be yes, we can do it, but we should not overweight them in our portfolio. And it should be a long-term investment, because if you are really looking for stabilization of your portfolio, and you are putting and overweighting the foreign bonds, then basically you may not achieve your goal because there will be a huge volatility coming from just the currency exchange fluctuations. That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. Bye-bye.